Your father says you should take things as they come, and of course that is the best plan, but I think you will not be contented long without something definite. I am teaching you to keep house, but with your quickness you will find yourself with a good deal of time on your hands, especially on this Long Island farm where you are a stranger. You do everything with a rush. Here you have finished your 6 towels, and I have still one of mine to hem." Mrs. Baird picked up Betty's little pile of blue and white barred tea towels and scrutinized the stitches. "They are neatly done." "Of course they are," laughed Betty, throwing back her graceful shoulders in burlesque pomposity. Yet under the merry challenge of her sweet wilful eyes looked confidence in her untried powers. "What can't I do? But I simply hate to sew." Betty finished by making a comic little grimace, though a glimmer of satisfied pride crept into her face at her mother's praise. "After all, it is pleasant to do a thing well, and to be told so." "You have a great capacity for love or hate, Betty, child, judging from the number of things you hourly hate and love," said Mrs. Baird. "But I am not through my lecture. At Weston you had so many friends that you could easily fritter away half of your time. Now you are old enough to appreciate that time is a gift, and that you are responsible for it. You know my favorite Robertson speaks of that strange, solemn thing, time." "Time doesn't seem that way to me," gasped Betty. "It is on butterfly wings, flying swiftly, but oh, so beautifully and gaily, too." Mrs. Baird smiled at the amusement she felt at her own inopportune quotation. "I see, Betty, that my sentiment is at least 20 years too old for you," she said, resuming her hemming. Betty stared over the bay with unseeing eyes. "Mother!" "Yes, Betty?" Betty turned a pair of dark, perplexed eyes to her mother. "Is a man bankrupt when he's in tight papers?" Mrs. Baird looked up with some surprise. Then she smiled. "No, it is not so bad as that, child. It is only an uncomfortable tightness between resources and liabilities. You have heard your father say that, doubtless. It is his favorite expression for lack of money." "Yes, father said he was in tight papers when I asked him to let me visit Lois next week." Betty sighed dolefully over the missed delight of a visit to her old Pine schoolmate, Lois Byrd. Mrs. Baird puckered her brows solicitously. "I am afraid you are very much disappointed, Betty." "Disappointed? Oh, dear, no!" exclaimed Betty, and she jumped from the window seat and threw her arms round her mother. "You know I am not anxious to run off from you after being away for 3 years at school. I was to stay with Lois only a week, anyway, for they are going as usual to Capri." Betty sank on the floor by her mother's chair, and leaning cozily against her knee, talked on. "When I asked father about going, he said he was in tight papers and had a mortgage, and that we had to be very economical until this place was paid for. Of course his salary with the Home Mission Board is larger than the one he had at the church in Weston, but his expenses have increased, and this buying a house takes a great deal of money. I forget how much, but it seemed a lot, and I made up my mind to help. Father sighed terribly when he got through talking. You have Katie to cook for you, and I could do something to make money, I am sure. What to do is the question." "You are rather young," began her mother. "Don't you say that," Betty interposed with mock sternness. 17 doesn't seem young to me. After all, it's only one's point of view, as Miss Greene used to say." Mrs. Baird folded her last towel and put it with Betty's. Betty sprang to her feet. "Now you are through with your stint, mother, I'll walk down by the water, and perhaps I'll get inspiration there." And humming, "Fair sails over us swinging, lightly the breezes blow," interspersed with whistles in imitation of the catbird, she hurried down the box-bordered path to the wide gate that opened almost directly on the pebbly beach. She stood a moment there, and her eyes swept the water from hilly shore to hilly shore, with an interest born of novelty. Far off towards the Sound she could catch a glimpse of the yellow sand dunes, and outlining the glittering heaps, a sky as blue as any in her dreams of Italy. The hills and shore were a vivid green.